Thank you for that very warm welcome, and I think definitely at 10:25 in the morning, it's time to get into higher gears. And actually, I promised you that we are making history together here again. You'll definitely be among the first ones to learn about the really exciting, and I'm not exaggerating here, historic changes that we have at Citrix. The entire IT world, and I think this is nothing new, we are walking massively through a transformation in the IT. Everything that was taken for granted in the previous 20 years, especially when it comes to application delivery, on-premise virtualization, where customers were actually running their own data centers, this kind of world is about to transform. For me, it was quite tough to find a way how to describe what's happening there, but I personally call it the Pac-Man effect. And you can perfectly see that. So I'm a kid of the 80s, and Pac-Man was one of the very first games I ever played. And the idea, of course, was that these little Pac-Mans were going through that maze and were actually actively connecting all these dots. If you see these dots as workloads that customers like you are having, like virtualized desktops, virtualized mail servers, virtualized file servers, almost any kind of infrastructure that you're currently running in your own environment, then these kind of Pac-Mans are the infrastructure and desktop as a service producers in the world. So the transformation per se is that more and more customers are moving their workloads, moving their infrastructure into any of those cloud vendors. Of course, we still have disbelievers and believers. That's the classical thing, as always, but there's no doubt that this is not a question about if that happens, it's a question about when that happens. Some are early birds, some are the early starters, but others are moving past. So that means all the merits, all the great achievements that vendors like Citrix and its competitors made in the past are worth nothing, because the game starts from scratch again. So regardless how you successful were in server virtualization on premise, this is worth nothing as we move into the cloud. And in the cloud, the usual suspects, the leaders in server virtualization, are not on top. They are on the very low left, where nobody really wants to be, because in the cloud, and the largest cloud in the world are actually running on Xen-powered clouds, and you can see that there are differences in the way how that works. So this transformation is not just a transformation for customers, for people like you, it is also a transformation for vendors, because the way how we sell products, the way how we offer technologies is different. What you see here is a Gartner quadrant from August this year, so it's brand new. And what you can see here, the difference between the upper right, where everybody wants to be, and the lower left, where nobody wants to be, is quite clear. And there's a reason for that. Because most of those which are on the lower left, like NTT, IBM, VMware, are actually offering infrastructure as a service, which basically means customers are still running their own environment. They are still running all of their products, applications, and stuff in a virtualized environment somewhere else, instead of getting this as a managed service. And the two companies that you see on the upper right are Microsoft and are Amazon Web Services. And these two vendors, there is a clear reason why they are alone on the very top right. And that reason simply is that they are not just simply offering flat, stupid virtual infrastructure, they are offering services. So at Microsoft, you don't just get a virtual environment, you just get a virtual desktop. Office 365, you get Skype for Business, you get services, you get an email account if you like. You get all these type of applications, these application as a service, like at Amazon Web Services, and that is fundamentally a different type of approach to a classical infrastructure as a service, where customers like you still have to take care of everything. And the reason why this is a very clear way and the most successful way in cloud computing, because platforms like vCloud Air are almost dead in Germany, is the reason that it's about, of course, it's about the Benjamins, as the Americans say, right? Benjamin is actually the nickname for the $100 note in the US. And actually it is always about the Benjamins. Because the differentiator between running everything on premise or on an infrastructure as a cloud service compared to a managed service is like the difference between buying a car, where you are responsible for everything associated to the car. You have to take care of your own insurance, tires, wheels, maintenance, everything. Or if you lease a car, and leasing a car is like going to such a provider like Microsoft or Citrix, where you don't buy a product anymore. You basically buy a result. You get a result. You don't care how backup is done. You don't care what type of infrastructure there is. You buy a result and make sure that whatever you pay for, you get the apps available 24/7, and technically you also get backup and storage of your data, and it's available, and you don't care about the details. So it's basically the way how you want to consume products and technology in future. And in this big world of cloud providers and different cloud approaches, Citrix is having a very unique one. And that approach from Citrix is called Citrix Cloud. And that Citrix Cloud basically is a product where we are offering all of our infrastructure services, XenApp, XenDesktop, XenMobile, ShareFile, and NetScaler as a service. But if you believe that this makes us the second Microsoft Azure, you're mistaken. The approach that we have is so cool. I tell you, this is really cool from a technology perspective and from the perspective of how much can you decide in your own infrastructure and how much are vendors deciding what you should do. I would like to give you an insight how that technically works and how we do that from a strategic position. So how is the way how Citrix delivered its technologies today. If you are a successful Citrix customer, it really means that this kind of infrastructure is running 100% in your own environment or wherever you install it. That's the classical thing. We have on the very top, we have the different kind of backend components that usually no user sees. This is something that needs to be available that users can consume their apps and desktops. And in the lower part, we have the virtualized or server-based virtualized terminal services with Citrix XenApp on top, or the virtual desktops with XenDesktop. So how does the new product Citrix Cloud come into that game? And this is really cool, because if you buy Citrix Cloud, you're no longer buying the product with a standard product licensing, the perpetual licensing that you know. No, we are making basically a break in between. That means the service that Citrix is selling technically is the 24/7 availability of the entire backend infrastructure. That means license servers, the consoles, the delivery controllers, storefront as the page where the user gets first for authentication and to actually consume and see the resources that have been published. The great thing about Citrix Cloud is that this part, which we formerly called the farm, the Citrix farm, now turned into a new kind of term, which is called resource location. And the great thing about the resource location is it can be anywhere. Why is that so good? Because compared to vCloud Air, Azure, Amazon Web Services, these single cloud vendors are permanently telling you what you can do and what not, right? So that basically means either you have everything, your data, your applications, like everything in their cloud, or you die. The difference between Citrix Cloud and any other cloud approach is that our cloud is a cloud approach on your terms and not on vendor terms. I give you an example. This basically means you could say, nah, you know, my virtual desktops, this is something that I will host here in Czech Republic at a public cloud provider because they give good prices, my virtual desktops, and the performance is working quite well. I keep that in a public cloud in my first resource location, but my data, my intellectual property, and everything that I believe should be classified and should be secured is something I can have in further resource location, still on premise in my own data center. So in other words, the approach of the cloud with Citrix is by decoupling the logics of the backend, the high availability and the protection of your resource location. This is the service basically that Citrix grants, and the resource location where actually the resources are stored can be deployed where the user wants it to be. If it's in any public cloud, if it's a Citrix partner with a Citrix reseller, or if it's on-premise still with a customer, we have that multi-cloud approach all in one product, and it's up to the customer to decide how to do that. We have another technology coming out, especially these months. It's a latest addition to Citrix Cloud. And in order to better understand what we do, it's good to have a look still at this one. In the cloud, in the Citrix Cloud as we have it today, the access from pushing the button of Word or any other published application or desktop, if I push that button, the connection between the client device and the virtual desktops or virtualized servers happens with our protocol directly through the security infrastructure of the customer. So that means we are going with our connection through your firewall, through your DMZ, this kind of infrastructure that you have to make sure is absolutely stable and solid in order to avoid hacking or something else. So what Citrix offers as an addition is what we call NetScaler Gateway as a Service. And that means we are adding to our cloud a NetScaler in the cloud. It's part of the service that you can consume. We are adding to our cloud connector a NetScaler connector. And the cool thing afterwards is that this kind of service that we offer, a kind of security as a service, means that the user does not only authenticate through the Citrix Cloud, does not only get his application and desktop set. When the user is actually launching an application or a desktop, this connection, in this case, in this scenario, goes also directly through the Citrix Cloud, through our cloud connector, which is like an SSL VPN for your resource location to our backend, means you do not need any longer an own security infrastructure, because this is something that Citrix takes care of. So technically this is a service, this is not a must, but we are offering this to make it easier to avoid you of having a separate security infrastructure and consume this as a service like anything else from Citrix. So once again, we are fortunately not like this. This is what you see here. This is the Amazon Web Services, this is the vCloud Air, all the things that have proven not to be super successful in this case. Simply because you're limited, because with a single vendor cloud and all these others you're basically limited by almost everything. Well, I mean, my parents told me, Fabian, if you let other people think for you and do all the brain work, it's super comfortable and easy, but it's super expensive, because you play after their roles. True. So that means the Citrix Cloud means it's cloud on your terms, because you decide where resources are, on what platform they run, on what hypervisor they run. Our cloud is a cloud of choice because you make that choice and nobody else. Well, I'm quite sure even in North Korea there are happy people, right? Because there are people who do all the brain work. There's nothing better than an easy life with a structure where you don't have to think. So what we do on top of that is basically offering Citrix Cloud, and this is very unique in IT because no other vendor does that. We have the brain work in the backend, but you control our brain in this case. You control that brain that we hold ready as a broker. And technically, you decide in the end where your data, where your intellectual property, where your applications, where your file servers are basically located. It's a perfect way to make a smooth ramp up into the cloud. Any other cloud vendor will tell you everything, you bring us everything into that cloud or nothing. At Citrix we say you deploy that in a cloud of your choice, in a location of your choice, and what you don't want to have there, you just keep it on premise. So Citrix allows you to even modify that status at any time you basically want. And all you need, and this is the only piece of technology that is adding to the traditional product, is what we call Cloud Connector. This will be deployed on your XenApp servers, on your terminal servers, on your virtual desktop, on everything that you run in a resource location. It's a kind of SSL VPN client, which is based on the servers in your resource location to make a connection and a secure exchange between the Citrix cloud and your resources. Let me give you an idea how that perfectly works. We are here in Prague. Let's assume your administration, because you have very qualified people there, your administration sits in Pilsen, right? Your resource location is here in Prague, and your users, of course, are traveling Czech-wide or even outside Czech Republic. And maybe on November 1st, a new employee is joining you. And let's have a look how that works. So the admins here in Pilsen are sitting there, and you call them. You are the boss of the new people starting on November 1st, and you tell them, look, we have a new hire beginning November 1st. Would you please create a domain account? Would you please give them a virtual Windows 10 desktop? And would you please give them all the application and the access that user requires? So your staff, which is located in Pilsen, is accessing through the consoles of the Citrix cloud with your credentials, is actually opening the management console and is directly accessing the resource location, which is in your data center in Prague. So you are accessing that. The connector is basically deployed. The user is given the virtual desktops and the apps and everything. And as soon as this is done, you can additionally add our product ShareFile and XenMobile, the mobility solution, and secure file handling and file sharing. So as you can see, everything is prepared on a location from someone who's far apart where the user sits and far apart where the resources are actually located. And technically speaking, all this setup is given to the user. So the new hire comes November 1st, he's accessing, and he's actually directly launching his apps. Ladies and gentlemen, what we do here is just adding a new part to the same equation. For more than 25 years, Citrix is evangelizing the any theme. Any user over any connection from any device anywhere. This still maintains. We had that even before the cloud existed. What we are adding to this equation, and this is the new thing, is that now the cloud, the data center, can now also be at any location that you wish. This gives a flexibility which is unknown and gives you the ability to basically move among different cloud providers. And that is the clear differentiator to all of our competitors, that regardless if it's on public cloud, private cloud, on-premise, wherever it is, Citrix always supported any type of hypervisor, so you made that choice what you want and not what a vendor tells you. And if you're not having your resource location on-premise, but you move parts of it to a cloud, you can be sure that Citrix supports any public cloud to have this in mind. Of course, security is important. And this is also something that we do. Citrix acts as always as a broker. Citrix doesn't authenticate. We never did. We take the credentials, scramble them, put them to an Active Directory, Azure AD, to a radio server, whatsoever this instance says yes or no, and we give back the application set. So we are not storing configuration, we are not storing usernames or passwords. We are what we have always been, a high availability broker. The next thing is the data. The data resides where you want and not where we want it. So the best protection is that you keep it in a place where you decide it should be and not where a vendor should tell you where it is. The next thing is maximum security. Citrix doesn't deliver any encryption pairs for a certificate with it. You have to bring it. The reason is very simple. If you own or create the encryption pair, nobody else than you has that. So that means Citrix and all of its affiliates do not even have a technical ability to sneak into any kind of technology. All right, so I can read in your eyes you're already excited. So ignition number 1 has already been done. So let's go on for the next one. And this is really cool. The next 2 announcements are quite cool. In Q1, that means from January on, Citrix will have a brand new product in place. And this product is very special because it actually clearly outlines the relationship that Citrix has with Microsoft, and I would say I'm with Citrix for more than 17 years. The relationship with Microsoft has never been closer than these days. Or how would you call that if Microsoft skips a product for the sake of a partner? Since October 1st, Microsoft de-announced its product Azure Remote Apps. Azure Remote App is for me the terminal server of the cloud. It's the way to deliver published application on terminal services from the Azure cloud, and this product is no longer available. So what is the succession for it? And this is quite cool. Microsoft and Citrix are launching 2 separate products exclusively, and XenApp Express is one of it. So XenApp Express will be in Q1 the succession. It is XenApp for the clouds running on Azure with the same quality that you know from on-premise installation. The cool thing is, even here, Microsoft and Citrix don't let you down like other competitors in this field. As you can see, the deployment options also consider an on-premise version, so that means even in this case, Citrix and Microsoft are not forcing you into the cloud. Regardless if you want that or not, you are still able to keep parts and components in your local environment. What do you believe is the technology behind that? It's quite easy. It's technically the Citrix cloud. So if you consider Citrix XenApp Express a product, technically it's the management console in the product that I just introduced. So XenApp Express is just another flavor of the Citrix cloud, but limited to a resource location on Azure, of course, and with the published application and the terminal services that we have. So the customer requires both. In former times, he needed a Microsoft Terminal Server and RDS CALs. In future, he will require an Azure subscription, and he will require a Citrix subscription, and you're ready to go to keep your applications back there. You still believe that is everything? No, it gets even cooler. The same thing we are exclusively doing when it comes to VDI, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is something we really call a game changer. Game changer means this is not just a new product, this is a new dimension, and basically makes any VDI deployments from all of our competitors obsolete. What is the background on that? In July this year, during Microsoft's World Partner Conference, Microsoft was announcing finally that they are offering Windows 10 as a true desktop as a service. So something all VDI customers always wanted to do is finally happening now. We are delivering, or Microsoft is delivering, a Windows 10 desktop. And if the numbers are correct, that can be Googled, Microsoft also announced in July that they are roughly thinking about a figure of like $7 to $10 per user per month. And ladies and gentlemen, even if this is just a US figure, it gives you a direction where we are moving price-wise. If we are coming close, if Microsoft is coming close to that, plus Citrix technology, then any on-premise VDI installation with Citrix or VMware can be killed and the ROI is dead. Because no on-premise environment, and you know that, VDI requires a hypervisor infrastructure, it requires storage, it requires management, it requires all this doing, is no longer needed, and it's actually too expensive. So that was the announcement from Microsoft in July, and in January as well. I really want you to stay tuned. In January, between January 9th and 11th, Citrix Summit, Microsoft and Citrix are jointly announcing Windows 10 VDI on Azure. And this is, yeah, you're exploding internally, right? I can see that in your eyes. So basically, Windows 10 on Azure is a service that we are offering together. Microsoft, of course, as always, you have to be eligible for that. So it depends on the way how you obtained your Windows 10 license from Microsoft. So there will be migration scenarios from Microsoft to consume a Windows 10 as a service. But as you can imagine, Windows 10 VDI service infrastructure is, of course, also the second flavor that we offer based on our Citrix Cloud strategy. So the same thing here, and Microsoft is not doing that with VMware or anybody else. They wanted the best, and they got the best. And that's Citrix with HDX and the entire management. So basically, Citrix is offering together with Microsoft, for the first time in history, Windows 10 as a managed service. Prices, licensing programs will be announced in the first quarter next year. To be precise, I believe somewhere between January and February. And this is definitely changing the way, because this is so different than infrastructure as the service that vCloud Air or others are offering. This is technology from yesterday. This is something nobody wants. People want services, and we can clearly see that from the numbers we sell, and we can see that from the Azure business as it is in the United States and even in Europe. This is really a blast, because you get services and not just plain naked infrastructure. But this is still not everything. There's one more thing to come. What we already announced earlier this year is a joint development with Microsoft, which is part of our HDX optimization pack. And this is basically a joint development for the integration of Skype for Business into XenDesktop. And that basically has already been announced in June this year. And the cool thing is, Microsoft clearly made the emphasis and said, Citrix XenDesktop is the only solution, the only VDI solution that integrates Skype for Business for any type of devices. While our competitors are just using Microsoft plugins, this is the way how we did it before the war, is actually now that we have a protocol which allows you to deliver Skype for Business to any potential type of device. And it's perfectly and neatly integrated into XenDesktop. And as you can imagine, this technology together with our product, and if you have a holistic view on everything, Citrix and Microsoft are offering you things no VMware, no Amazon Web Services, no IBM SoftLayer will ever be able to offer you as a service. Windows 10, Office 365, Skype for Business, any other type of application that you might want to deliver. And that basically is the cutting edge technology that will be a game changer in future. But a couple of more things. We see the first customers having CAD applications for constructions in the cloud with Citrix. If you want to experience how smooth CAD application and HD videos are running smoothly, you can also see that here at the Aero Virtualization Forum, together with our partner Igil, who are which is a long-term partner of Citrix with thin clients and client devices per se. We are together with the very, very skilled Aero team. We are showing you the delivery of CAD applications via Citrix Live on our booth right here in the hall. So if you want to join and see that, you're more than happy. We are more than happy to invite you there and to explain you how that technically works. So last not least, we believe that our way to the cloud is the best one. And we're not just saying that because this is marketing, which tells us all the time that we are the best. We believe that we are best because, and I'm really serious about that, our cloud approach lets you decide what, where, why, and when things happen. Any single cloud or vendor cloud is basically something where you have to follow the rules of a vendor. In a Citrix cloud, we change with you. And we believe that this kind of agility, this kind of flexibility is something that customers want and need. And you can modify that status quo whenever you want. I hope that was a little bit inspiring to you. And I hope to have a couple of conversations with you right outside at the booth or at the Citrix booth. Thank you very, very much for joining me this morning, and hope to see you later on during the conference. You all have a great day. Thank you.